All right, let me get through. Okay, got the recording go. Yeah, so it's been the past couple weeks, and apologies for flaking out on you last week. I think I tried to push myself a little bit too hard.
That's okay.
Yeah, coming back, and I just flaked out last week. Just wasn't great, but I think we can take the more or less the cumulative effect of what we've seen over the past couple weeks, and
Wow.
yeah, well, I mean, what I what I'm what I'm thinking is, and I think you'll agree, is that what we have to prevent is something like a Trump again. We can't have that.
Wait a second. Well, wait. You've always been a Trump supporter most of the time. Republican Party supporter, absolutely. Trump supporter,
Sure.
voted for Trump, and you just completely threw me for a loop there. All right, when you said that. Next, you're going to say you don't support Cruz anymore.
Well, we'll get to Cruz.
Okay, we'll get to Cruz. Never mind. You're making me smile already today.
but I mean, you would agree with that, right? That we, with the Capitol riot,
not just that. He's got a completely failed administration. And it really shows now that Joe Biden took over. In the first 2 days, he overwrote all of Trump's, or not all, but most of Trump's executive orders. Everybody's freaking out about it because, you're canceling Trump or whatever. Well, then he should have actually done something, put a stamp on something, but he didn't. All he did was just write a bunch of paper. So it was easy to get rid of it, get rid of his whole whatever he did, right?
Yeah. So, well, and so what I'm wondering is that, the Dems and, I would say the party. I say, we talked, kind of went back and forth, but they're the party now.
They are right now.
Yeah. And so what I'm wondering is, I mean, can we, what we don't want a situation like that again.
No. Absolutely not.
Right. And so what measures should be taken to ensure that we don't have even anything close to another Trump? Now, it seems to me like I think your prognosis on the Republican Party splitting is correct. Yep. What it sounds like is that, or the rumors are that Trump is going to try to begin a new party, which will in effect destroy the Republican Party in perpetuity.
Go and Patriot Party. Yeah, you've already heard of it, right? The Patriot Party. They're just begging for him to take it over and run it, right?
Well, no.
No, I mean the people that are in the Patriot Party are begging for Trump to take it over. They've created websites. They've done the whole thing. They're just saying, "Here, Trump. Here's a party for you. Let's be a party."
Yeah. So, but you can't. But you can't allow. So you can't allow for something like this to rise up again through the Republican ranks. Yeah, you have got to completely squash this thing, and this is the opportunity to do it. Obama had the golden opportunity. I mean, he had a super majority in the Senate, and what he should have done is what Biden should do now, which is first of all abolish the filibuster.
Right.
They didn't have, for whatever reason, the party didn't have the spine for it or whatever when Obama was in charge, and they should have done that. And they did it for judicial appointments, which, okay, fine, but that ended up biting them in the butt because somehow the pubs were able to rise up, win the House in 2010, win that Senate in 2014, and then win the presidency in 2016. And what's got to be prevented is that kind of, I mean, it's just going to be a repeat of history if something isn't done.
Right. So something really weird about the filibuster, okay? Because I went back and did some more reading about it since it's such a hot topic right now. And you know, the filibuster is not
Sure.
in the Constitution. It was something that was developed
No,
in the
no, it's
late 17th century. It was very rarely used in the 19th century. It's really only the modern, like last 20 years that it's been used, and really only the last 10 that it's really been used, right? So, but the framers, this is the beauty of it, is the framers actually figured out the filibuster before there was a filibuster. If you think about it, the Senate is a filibuster because the Senate itself is is uh, is anti-democratic because it gives the weaker states more say than what it does the most populous states and that type of thing. It is the filibuster that was developed by the framers. So why not just use that and keep the Senate as a majority rules? And they have a tiebreaker. They built all that in. The framers were genius when they come up with all that. Don't put any more rules on it. Get rid of that. Get rid of all these. I want to play this way. I want to play that way. McConnell rules that he's grappling at straws and delaying like he did for the last how many years to try to keep a little bit of control where they really need to just cut the cord, say, sit over in the corner. We want to work with you. We want you to have your input. But if you don't want to work with us, we're just going to do it. Be done with it.
right. And I think Biden's inauguration speech was very good and in line with, you know, calling for unity, but unity in the sense of we're the victors, and
Right.
if you want the country to heal, then you're going to have to abandon, you know, those old principles, and you're going to have to come over to what our agenda is. That's the idea, right?
Yeah. And you can have input into that agenda because there's a lot of nuances within that agenda as you pass legislation, right? And we want them to have their input because we want their constituents to be heard also, right? But otherwise, you can just sit in the corner or go home and we'll go ahead and take care of it while you're away. I mean, that's kind of the way they treated the Democrats for the last several congressional sessions, right? They didn't give them any voice. They just passed things as they wanted to, especially around the judicial thing, because McConnell, because there's no filibuster for judicial, he had Supreme Court justices and federal judges for all over the country. You know, and Trump bragged about it. We put in X hundred judges, and he didn't work on any legislation at all. And one of the reasons he didn't work on any legislation was because the Democratic Congress was passing things to him. He didn't want to vote on it. He wouldn't even send it to committee. I mean, it never got looked at. Period. It sat on his desk. So that was 4 years of dead zone for our country. And I know you like gridlock. We've talked about that before, but that really was the true essence of gridlock, you know? So now that I would put Mitch McConnell in a corner immediately, I would certainly listen to him because I know he carries a lot of power there for some reason. But the 2 million people that voted for him in Kentucky shouldn't run the 330 million people that live across the United States. So,
well, you know, right. So I guess what I'm wondering is that how do you prevent another? So in 2 years, if some major steps aren't taken in 2 years, it looks very likely that the Republicans will control the House of Representatives again. It looks not as likely, but you know, one senator is going to make the difference in 2 years, and there's a good possibility because Warnock was elected on what's her face? I don't even want to remember her name. Was elected on her appointment, so he's up for re-election in 2022.
Right.
So he loses that seat in Georgia. Now you've got a if the Republicans win the House and they win that one seat in Georgia, now you've got a Republican-controlled Congress again, which is just a repeat of what we had when Obama was elected. 2010, 2014, 2016, we're going to have the same cycle all over again. How do you stop that?
I think the people are going to stop it. I think because the Republican Party will be split and splintered, because there's going to be, if it's not going to be Trump, it's going to be one of the people that want to carry his flag, whether it's a Cruz or a Holly or whoever it is. Somebody wants to carry his flag and carry those millions of people. Now, those millions of people, whether they're QAnon or whether they just believe in this, they don't read anything. I got a couple of Facebook buddies that I love to ding back and forth, because all they want to do is call me a libtard, and they never actually, and I keep posting things back to them and references for them to read. They never read it. They just post back to me and call me a libtard. But the beauty of it is they're people that they associate with actually do read the stuff that I send them, and they ask me questions, even though he is quite abrupt, or there's actually two of them that are quite abrupt and just call me names. I'm okay with that, because the other people that he or the two guys associate with, they're in two complete different venues of the world. But it's good that his friends get to see the other side, or get to hear somebody that provides a real argument, not just a name calling exercise like 5-year-olds or something. But anyway, that's just how I do it. So I think that there's still going to be a lot of people that follow the as Trumpians, and they're going to, whatever happens with QAnon and all those, they're going to vote that direction. And there's going to have to be senators that are going to have to split and follow that too, like your Cruzes or Hollies or whoever. That want, Graham. I mean, all those guys are going to have to make a choice eventually and say, am I a real Republican? Am I a fiscal conservative Republican for all those values that Republicans used to stand for, or am I a Trumpian? And I think that'll make the difference. And I think some of them are going to lose because of that. So some of them are going to win because of it.
Right. Well, it seemed like in 2008, at least, with the dominance of the Democrat Party, that's what was banked on. Hey, we're, the Republican Party is done. They're splintering, they're disintegrating, but somehow, again, 2010, they rise out of the. I mean, again, even looking at this last election, you're 9 seats away from controlling the House.
Right.
It just seems like that if you want to guarantee that the party is going to prevail in perpetuity, there's got to be something else done.
Well, you know what that is. You have to make D.C. a state. And then maybe even make Puerto Rico a state. That way you get some more Democrats on board. And then the numbers, the numbers start bending the right way. So get rid of the filibuster. I mean, Biden's already supported making D.C. a state in the past. It's not part of the Democratic platform, but maybe. I mean, it's not to say that it's going to be a state. I can't remember exactly what it did say about that. I'd have to go back and look. I just printed out the table of contents because I thought maybe we were going to talk about some of that stuff today.
No.
But anyway, maybe if we get that far. But anyway, yeah, they'd have to bring in the other two states. And once we get to the other two states, or maybe the other thing we could do is reduce other locations from states to territories. Because if you think about it, some of the least populous states, why are they even states? Why do they enjoy the royalty of being a statehood? Let's say like Montana or Wyoming, why don't we just make them territories? Or
Utah. Yeah.
Utah. Utah, only 11% of the land in Utah is actually owned by individuals. The rest is owned by the government anyway. So let's just make those territories. Let's get rid of some Republican senators and Republican congressmen. That shifts the scale the other way too, right? It's going to make our flag look kind of goofy with all these weird little stars going on and off and everything. But that's the other way you could do it. It'd be difficult to do that, to take statehood away. But do they really bring the resources of statehood with them? Do they deserve to be a state? I mean, Pluto got kicked out of being a planet, so why couldn't Wyoming be kicked out as being a state, right? Just thinking out loud.
Sure. Okay. All right. Fair enough. The other issue, well, that's where I see maybe even now more than when Obama was in office, you have a golden opportunity because you've got the corporations, you've got social media on
Mhm.
board with this,
Mhm.
to put down these lies that
Yep.
that have elevated the Republican Party over the past decade, let's say.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm glad you agree they were lies and conspiracy theories. All this stuff is just made up stuff.
yeah.
It's
So
hard to swallow. I know, but it's when it comes down to it, it's made up or it's twisted or it's a sound bite that's taken out of context. It's ridiculous what they come up with sometimes.
yeah, and so this is a thing that I kind of saw the light on in a sense of when you talk about China,
Hmm.
because when you describe China, I was confused about what goes on over there. But I heard somebody talking about this, and I can't remember who, but the idea is as long as you don't speak against the party, do whatever you want, make as much money as you want, own as much land as you want, do whatever you want. You just don't speak against the party.
Well, it's a little
Um,
more complicated than that, right? But you got to go back
yeah,
to the structure of how Chinese people even talk to each other, right? I mean,
sure.
we talk to each other, and we I'll give you one example. One way we talk to each other, like you and I, we talk to each other. It's like a tennis match. I talk for a while, you talk for a while, boom, boom, back and forth, right?
Hmm.
And most of the time, if we're in person, if we didn't have the little glitch whenever we're over talking some each other, we probably wouldn't do this as much as far as listening and sitting and listening to the other person. It would be more like tennis back and forth. Where in Chinese culture, it's more like bowling. I roll a couple of balls, kind of like what we're speaking now. You back up, the other person rolls a couple of balls, right? And so
Hmm.
you have more respect, right? The other part about Chinese culture or Asian culture is the feeling of face. You never degrade a person. Like I would never call somebody, especially like a Facebook post or something like that. I won't call somebody a name because that's you've stooped to a new level. Like I just said, some of my friends actually call me libtard or whatever. I don't care,
Sure.
but I don't stoop to that level, right? You would never do that in Asian culture. I mean, those are if you call somebody a name, even though it's a soft name, but it's still negative. You're probably looking for a fight because what you really do for people, especially people you like, is you give them face. You prop them up. You tell them how good they are. You make them better, right? You're there to serve. It's more of a servant culture versus a servant and together culture versus a me culture and the independent ruggedness that we have here in the United States, right? And that doesn't mean that they're soft. It just means that the way they look at other human beings is different than how we do. You know, when driving down the road, if I get at a stoplight, I'm naturally thinking, how am I going to get in front of the guy beside me, right? Before
Mm.
we get to that merge, right? Where you're not doing that in society when you're in an Asian country, you know? You're thinking about, well, he's got a truck, he's going to go a little slower so I can get in front of him, or he's got a car, I'm not going to try to push him. You know what I mean? Just make it work. Let it flow a little bit, right? There's a lot of sayings that go along with that.
Sure. Well, but again, in China, so for instance, the example I think of is what went on with the NBA. I don't know, several months ago,
Yeah.
where one of the one an NBA official spoke out for the liberation, quote unquote, of Hong Kong, and that he said he was with um
Mhm.
and that's going so the NBA has free reign over there. Just don't speak against the party.
That's right.
Um, and
Why
I
do you
think
bite the hand that
that
feeds you? Why would you bite the hand that
right,
feeds you? Why are you going against the party? Why would somebody, a
right,
representative of the NBA, support something that is something critical right now in China?
Yeah.
That's that.
So right, and I see something like that formulating here in our country, that says perhaps the way forward is this notion of do whatever you want, own whatever you want, work wherever you want, say whatever you want, as long as it's not against the party. You just don't speak against the party. That period, end of story.
Well, I think it's deeper than that. Is that when you and I growing up, you wouldn't see people speak to each other the way we do now, like in a grocery store or something.
Sure.
And I mean, people are quite rude now, you know, and they are because it's that rugged individual. I can say what I want to say. I didn't yell fire in a crowded uh, theater, but I can still say anything I want. I can go in and out of an establishment without a mask because it's my right. And it's, well, everybody wants to assert their right, no matter how that right, may hurt other people or may not hurt other people. But we didn't have that when we grew up. We had a lot better culture where we actually got along a lot better, I think, back then. Even though that we had our problems, I'm not giving those up, and civil
Sure.
rights and all the other things. But even especially within our family groups and our friend groups, and even to our political groups, we just had a much more civilized culture back then. It's gotten way out of hand.
Right, right. And so in order to rein that in, I think as a rule, you you know, you say, look, this is the deal, folks. This is the dominant party. This is the party that 80 some million Americans voted into power. You're in the minority, and in order for us to all get along, what we're going to say is that if you speak against that, then you are those are fighting words. That's incitement to insurrection.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's where I see. So hey, all right. So let's do a little ski. I told you I had a little transcript for you.
Yep.
And some videos. So we'll do
Yep.
a little screen sharing here.
Sure.
I got the sound on. I'm not sure if that matters for this, but yeah. But here's a little transcript that was caught. Trump saying too many see the protests as the problem. The problem is what forced your fellow citizens to take the streets. Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful. You got crews responding. The protests aren't going to stop. This is a movement. They're not going to stop. Everyone beware. Everyone should take note on both levels. You're not going to let up, and they shouldn't let up, and we should not. And Holly chiming in. If we see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, department store, at a gasoline station, you should get out, create a crowd, and push back on them. So, that sounds to me like, if they, I don't, again, I just came across this, but that sounds like, a conspiracy to incite insurrection.
Yep. It does.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy in Texas today that just got charged with plotting to murder AOC. That he was there at the Capitol. He was there to murder her.
Yeah. Not good.
No.
And I teased you a little bit about the FBI investigating me, but I was maybe taken aback a little bit by all the billboards in Indiana that the FBI put up to inform on anybody that might have been involved in the Capitol riots.
I haven't seen them. I haven't been out.
Nah.
I mean, I just haven't been anywhere.
Right. Well, yeah. So so this week when I was out and about doing my job, the FBI has billboards up all across our state. Some of the static billboards, and then some of the electronic billboards. I was trying to get a shot of one of them. I just never came across one where I could get a picture of it. But they've got billboards here where if Doug or Jose, my neighbor, were if I came under the impression that they were involved in those, then I've got somewhere to report them.
Right.
And well, and then I think this idea is being put forth, and maybe rightly, if we want to get to this place where political speech, we put a tighter rein on political speech, where even voting for someone or supporting them. I mean, this is kind of the talk of the town right now. It seems like among the political experts and that sort of thing, to say that those press secretaries that were employed by President Trump should be Forbes has actually written on this, one of their editors, to say that these people should be blacklisted, kind of like what McCarthy was trying to do in the the 50s and 60s, right. Wrongly, but now maybe we can employ that kind of operation to make sure that this sort of thing doesn't happen again.
I can tell you now. You brought to this subject. You kind of wavered a bit there, but you brought this subject. So I work in engineering, and if we, the one thing that's really important in engineering is ethics, and that you do the right thing, and you do the right thing at the right time. It makes a huge difference, because if you design something wrong, or you don't say something about something that may be unsafe or something like that, people get hurt, people die. I mean, it's truly is a hazard in our world, right? And I work on things that can hurt people, right? So your ethics are very, very important. And I'll pick on our previous press secretary for Trump. If her ethics allowed her to walk out there and lie to the general public, how could I hire her to be a spokesperson for my product or whatever? She needs to get in a different line of work. It's just like it's funny, when I lived in Canada, to become a professional engineer in Canada, the only test that you have to take, it's not about whether you can do the calculations or not, because there's other people that you have to work so many years in the industry. You have to do all these other things. That's all taken care of. That's all before you ever go. The test you actually take is an ethics test to make sure. And the way they identify their engineers is they provide an iron ring, an iron pinky ring that they wear. And that iron pinky ring is forged from the steel from a bridge that had failed in Canada before and killed people. And that's the idea, is that you wear that ring. It's funny when you go to a meeting and all these guys around the table, they're all professional engineers. They all wear that pinky ring, and the little pinky ring touching the glass top table or whatever, you hear that click all the time, right? And everybody knows what that means, right? And it shows in how you do business too, right? And that's not just ethics on whether you do the right thing at the right time, but it's also in economic ethics, the way you do business from business to business ethics. I mean, it truly is. Since they brought that, they made it the heart of being a professional, right? Why can't our politics be that way? I don't believe that they have to tell us absolutely everything, but they have to be fair and open with us. And to have somebody like our previous press secretary to stand in front of us and just give us lie over lie over lie over lie, she needs to get in a different business. Maybe she could own a restaurant, or maybe she should be an airline pilot, but she shouldn't be a press secretary, or she shouldn't be a spokesperson for any company at this point. She should be boycotted or blacklisted. End of story.
Okay. Right. Well, and and if come to find out that that Hawley and Cruz, said those words of insurrection along with Trump. I mean, Trump should have been arrested when he came down the escalator. Yeah.
He was inciting some stuff. He was still a private citizen at that point. I don't know if he should have been arrested right there, but somebody should have had a word with him, pulled him on the side and said, "Hey, this is not."
Well, and I mean, we you can't really tolerate that. I mean,
Well, people can make a mistake, but if you make a continue the same mistake over and over again, and you do it consciously, okay, then somebody needs to talk with you. And if you continue to do it consciously, then you got to get out of that business. You got to go do something else because you're a danger to everybody, including yourself.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that's why you can't speak against the party, because the party sets the parameters for what is true and what is false and what is going to be helpful to people and what is not going to be helpful to people. Right.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's why somebody like Tulsi Gabbard didn't survive, because she didn't understand that, in the grand scheme of things, to go against the party was ultimately going to hurt people, because what the parameters we set for what is true and false and what's going to help people and hurt people are set by the party. That's, and when the party sets the parameters for what is good and what is bad and what's going to help people and what's going to hurt people, then it is our obligation to follow those parameters. And Gabbard wasn't on board with that. She was doing this whole, well, let's debate the issues. Let's talk about the pros and cons. No, the party sets the parameters, and
within the party they have to debate those pros and cons. But you have to have truths, right? And there's truth and then there's lies. There's not truths and falses. There's not truths and alternate truths, and all these other new words that we've got over the last 4 years. I mean, if a politician, everybody says a politician always lies to you. Well, you know what? It was very blatant during the Trump administration that we were being lied to, right? At least they tried to hide it a little bit before. If they didn't quite, politicians are politicians. They still want to be reelected. I mean, but they at least had mostly truth. I would have to guess that they'd have to have some truth into what they're saying. Otherwise, people, you have to have a belief, right? It's like our news system now. You can get news during the day, but when it comes to prime time, you have to have the opinion stuff on all the channels, right? It's crazy. There's no truth out there. It's hard to discern for the average person what is the truth. You have to really be a critical thinker to get through it all.
Well, right. And so, but the thing of it is that, who delivers the truth to us? I mean, who tells us what's true? And you've got to have a foundation for that. And so, and that's why we can both sit here and agree that everything that Trump has pretty much ever said is a lie. Why? Because the party has said that what he's saying is false and what we're saying is true. They've laid that foundation for us.
Yeah, most of Trump lies are just disproved by just fact. I mean, when you can point at something and say, no, how many times did he lie and said he had a healthcare plan ready for us in 2 weeks, right? I mean, that's just a blatant lie every time it came out of his mouth. He never had anything ready. But you take another respected leader of a country like Angela Merkel or somebody like that. Do you think she lies like Trump whenever she talks to her people? I mean, she's a politician, but when she comes out and talks to her people.
Yeah, well, but I think what you have to establish, I think what has to be established is what, this. So the party says this is what's true, and when you contradict that, it's a lie. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's where we're kind of, that's the place we're in, is that we've got to have somebody say, okay, this is what's true. Um, whether or not, you, and again, that's the problem with those who stormed the Capitol is, you know, they somehow bought into something that wasn't true,
Mm-hmm.
according to what the party said. Um, and so that's where I say, if you want to prevent this from ever happening again, you've got to set, a very baseline standard of what the party says is true, and you either believe that or you keep quiet. Period. End of story.
So the
The
framers made
party's got
sure
to
that
take.
everybody would know what the truth was. You know how they did that? By having the First Amendment, by having a free press. And they trusted that the free press, there's going to be some free press that's going to tell one story and some that's going to tell another story. And then the people should be able to critically think about what's going on here. What did I see? What did I feel? What do I understand? You know? So I think that was genius too with the framers, is they checked us for lies. And that's how we all know about Trump's lies, because the free press went out there and said, okay, how many, he's doing what, 30 lies a day? This was lie number one. This is his quote. This is what he did. This is why it is a lie, because he knew this exactly, or this happened. I mean, it's all documented, right? So we have a free press that does that. We have a weird press that gives us our late night TV, zingers, but we actually do have a free press out there. You and I, listen, we're not in Washington, but we go out and get our information from all kinds of different sources, and we bring it together and we critically think about it and come up with what we believe is the truth, right? So,
Well, yeah, but well, no, but well, okay. So I think that's dangerous, because you can't allow for, um you can't allow for a press that is critical of the party, um, because the party is handing down the truth to us.
mm-hmm.
And so if if you have OAN or the Blaze or the Daily Wire, these right wing conservative sources
Mm-hmm.
telling you something other than what the party is handing down to you, then those people have to be done away with. You have a social media platform like Parler, who is allowing people to openly and blatantly defy what the party is telling you is true. You can't
Mm-hmm.
allow for that. You've got to, those people have got to be done away with.
Well, people have to be able to discern what the difference is between the press and opinion. An opinion is what we have on late night news channels, which everybody thinks is the news, but it really isn't the news, or primetime news channels, and your OAN and your Newsmax and Parler and even Facebook, because Facebook sugarcoats a lot of stuff, right? Twitter, so people are on and off Twitter depending on what their views are and what they post. All those things are not news. When you open up the newspaper, crack it open, and you start reading news that Joe and Frank got in a car accident over on State Street, at 6 o'clock in the evening. One was, accused of this. That's news, right? When you get,
Mm-hmm.
well, Joe and Frank were probably both drunk, and we don't know if they crossed the line, but they spun their car around. You know what I mean? That's our opinion. That's completely different. And that's where Americans have really got to critically think about what they read and what they consume as press or as news or as opinion, and figure out, as a human being, you have to be able to discern that to get through life. And I think we're in a place right now where a lot of people in the United States don't do that. They are really only consumed with themselves, their immediate family, The garage goes up, the car goes in, they go to work, they're just, I'm off on my lunch. Oh man, I got to go to a doctor's appointment. They're so consumed with all the things that's going on in their bubble that they don't have time to actually sit down and think about that. You get a lot of windshield time. You get a lot of inputs from different, so you have that source all the time. I'm on the screen all day, so I've got different news up. I'm flipping back and forth between channels. I'm, doing research. I hear something. It's funny because your dad talks about having a set of encyclopedias in the house whenever he was a teenager, right? So if he didn't hear a new word or gets something, he'd grab the encyclopedia and look it up. And I'm just exactly the same way, because if I hear something, I'm going, whoa, that kind of piques my interest because I don't think that's right, or I do think that's right, or that doesn't fit, or I don't understand it. Immediately, I'm on the web. I want to find out about it. And I do that. I shouldn't say this out loud, but I actually do that in the middle of work sometimes, just because, I have to go down that rabbit hole right now, because that's just the way my brain works, right? I've got to have that bit of information and why it does that. And I think if people weren't as consumed with, and I'm not saying things are bad, right? They got family with kids, they got soccer games, they got church, they got all these things that they have to be at, and their schedules are so full, and their bosses are demanding, and they're going on a business trip, and it takes time to consume things and then critically think about it. A lot of people like this snippets. I want to watch this in 5 minutes. So there's even some websites and even some apps now that provide news. They feed you news. But the other thing is they're run by algorithms. So the algorithms feed you the news you want to be fed and how you want to have it fed. That's a whole other thing we can talk about, is how algorithms work, right? I mean, you have to, anyway, you have to put some pseudo things out there where you make new login names, and you make sure that one login name is looking for the things you normally look for, but make sure you have another login name that is your anti person, that looks for other stuff, the nasty, ugly things, or the weird stuff, or whatever, because that way you create different algorithms with different personalities, and you can see what the differences are. It's like if you and I pick up our Facebook, we don't get the same marketing plan. We don't get even though we've got many of the same friends, because we share family friends, right? We don't get the same posts. Everything comes up in a different way because of the algorithms, right? That's what's really, and I think that's what's really hurting our society now, is because people don't have to look for the truth. They're fed what they want to hear. It keeps building upon that. So their truth gets stronger and stronger. Then eventually you end up in DC. You're hanging from the chandelier in the Capitol going, what am I going to do now? So I think that's a big problem for us.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, again, the idea of being like China is appealing. That the party hands down to you what you think, and that's it.
Right.
There's no, there's none of this where you have to go. You and I are like doing these deep dives on all these political issues, and that's just sounds like that is, it's too dangerous. It ends up in Capitol riots. We need to have handed down to us from the party what we should think, right. And that's it. And then we don't have to worry about any of this. I mean, might kill our YouTube channel because there's not really much to debate after that.
Well, there's still things to debate. There's still things to talk about. I'll go back a little bit on another one. When Kennedy said we're going to go to the moon, did half of the United States go, no, hell no, we're not going to the moon? Are you kidding me? Everybody in the United States said, yeah, let's go to the moon. So the same kind of thing happens in China when you live there too, right? China puts out a 5-year plan, and President Xi blesses it at the end. He doesn't write the whole thing. It comes from all different places. But anyway, they put out this 5-year plan that says, we're going to do X, and we're going to do X, and we're going to do X. And then everybody knows That's what we're pulling behind because we want to make our country successful. And even this year, China had what was their GDP, 3.6 or something like that. Even with all the coronavirus and all the other stuff, so they pulled it out. I mean, they're not making double-digit GDPs like they were for many years. From like 2000 to 2012 or something. It's all double digits, and they went down to like 8%. We're lucky to get 2% on a good year. So anyway, you got to have people pull in the right direction. So I like what you're saying about having single party, pull for the party. Doesn't mean you can't speak against them. You can still discuss things because you have to have a direction, right? And you want input. I mean, people should ask for your input within the party, right? That's why us constituents vote our representatives to go and represent us to provide that input, right?
Well, no, okay, sure. I don't know.
Before
I
we go
just think,
further off that, I just want to say too, is even in China, the people, right, are representative, just like they call it the People's Republic of China, right? And that's because it's just like the United States is a republic, so is China. Now, this is going to sound really weird to you, but just like we have senators and congressmen, they have a hierarchy of folks that come from, so that the people actually can give their voice to their representative. Their representative represents them in the next layer and the next layer that goes all the way up to chief.
but you can't have all these people running around opposing the 5-year plan.
No.
When the 5-year plan is handed down, of course they don't. Mm-mm. And that's how it should be here. If you oppose the party, then that is an act of insurrection. Mm-hmm. Period. End of story. Whether it is, you're talking about it online, or whether it's your vote, or whether you're storming the Capitol or attending a protest or whatever, you don't oppose the party. Period. Done deal. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Party puts across the truth. You get in line with it. You may quibble with little details, maybe here and there or whatever. Sure. But at the end of the day, you don't oppose the party. Okay. That is the message that I am convinced has been sent across loud and clear to the American people, is you don't oppose the party. You, especially as we've seen, don't turn it into some sort of storming of the Capitol. By the way, which has been completely disgraceful, because Trump sent those soldiers that had to protect the inauguration. He sent them into the parking lots, and then he had his goons attack places like Portland, and those, you heard about those attacks, right?
Right.
Yeah. So Trump's behind all that.
You think he is?
Well, that's what I heard.
Okay.
You don't oppose the party. And anything that causes a problem the blame needs to be assigned to those who have opposed the party. And obviously Trump opposes the party, and anybody who would continually support him opposes the party. I mean, and it's the same thing with maybe even what's gone on over the summer or whatever else. This was something that was devised by somebody who opposed the truth. That's
opposed the truth.
Yep.
The other thing is that we have such an uncertainty here in the United States, right? I mean, we don't know. I mean, I'll pick on healthcare. We have a complete uncertainty about what's going to happen, right? You never know how your insurance company is going to help you, if you can afford to have insurance. You don't know what the cost of any medical service is going to be. Everything is like an uncertain, and you always have to be there to play the game and negotiate for your own cause. It's all that rugged independence thing and all that. If you could take, and I'll use healthcare now, but there's many things in our life that we have to do that with, where it's a constant negotiation, a constant hanging on by your nails to make sure that you get your part, right? Because everybody wants to pick them up by the bootstraps and everything else. If you lived in a country where all those things, you take that out of the equation and you know what all the rules are. Maybe you don't get everything exactly the way you want it, but at least you know what the rules are. So everybody's playing by the same set of rules. Where here you go state to state. We mentioned it about the gun thing in the beginning. We don't know what the rules are about purchasing firearms from state to state. I mean, I don't know what it is in Indiana compared to Ohio, but everything's different rules no matter where you go, and it's even different rules within your own state. It's different rules with dealing with every one of your insurance companies, where in some other countries, all that busy work, all that administrivia, I like to call it, all that busy work in our lives goes away because we know exactly what the rule is. And I can talk to you about, oh, did you know they have that rule where they can only pay out this much for our insurance? Yeah, it's a bummer, but that's the way it is. That's what everybody is. So I feel okay because everybody lives by the same rule, right? If you get rid of all the administrivia that we have going on in our lives, maybe we'd have more time to be more educated and do more critical thinking and be at a higher level in our life too. Thinking out loud.
Yeah, well, right. So, yeah, again, I mean, the idea of federalism, I mean, that each state can decide what it's going to do on its own. It's pretty ridiculous.
It is.
Pretty ridiculous idea. And that, we need the party to deliver to us what is best for us. And again, that's the thing. I think that's the message that's being delivered to us loud and clear, is that, individual, you can have your opinion about, what the party is delivering to us. But you just don't you don't say it out loud. You definitely don't say it on social media, and you sure as hell don't start any organization that would allow for people to speak against the party. You have the party dictate to us what is best by folks like Joe Biden, who has been around the government for a long time, Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, who's good. That's where we get our truth from, and you just don't contradict that. And if you
okay, go ahead.
Well, no, and if you contradict that, then that should be you should be brought up on charges of insurrection. That's it.
Well, you always worried about, geez, if I don't do what I'm doing, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, then it's immediately that it's some kind of jail term or something like that. I've been in situations.
You always have. Yeah, but the reality is, this is the unfortunate reality, is that if you're going to enforce that, if you're going to enforce the one party rule, the only way to truly enforce it is by a gun. I mean, we saw that in Tiananmen Square, where those idiots went out there and stood in front of tanks opposing the Chinese government. That's ultimately, and we see it in Hong Kong, where those morons are opposing the rightful owners of their city. You just don't do it. You don't oppose the party. And if you do, at the end of the day, we'll put billboards up asking for your neighbors to inform on you.
Yeah.
That's what it takes. That's what it takes.
So I lost my train of thought there for a second.
You see where I'm going with this?
I see where you're going with it.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, it clicked in now where you're going with it, and I can tell you that living in China and having very close friends over there, and I've been in situations where, like at work, you would never speak against the party. In fact, you won't even talk about politics at work. You would talk about.
You won't do that. You won't do that. You won't do that in the United States. I've got church mates that will speak against the party all day long in private quarters,
Yeah.
but they are employed by people in this country that if they did that publicly, they would be fired immediately.
They would be fired.
That's already going on.
Yeah.
We
Same kind
got
of
it
thing
going
there.
on here.
Same kind of thing. So, but they don't have any problem opening up and showing you what their disagreement is. But I can tell you, the disagreements that they have, I mean, it's not like the disagreements we have. We talk about immediately. We go from, geez, I don't like the way this is, so we're going to civil war. It's like these guys are, anyway. It's just a different way of looking at it, right? I don't. But like I say, it's a different culture too. We look at things differently here than what people do in China. How they look at their society and their culture versus how we do, also, right? So maybe.
Well, I'm gonna. Yeah. We've been going for an hour, and I want to keep going.
Okay. You want to take a break?
You're breaking up a bit. Yeah, let's take a break.